Today we have a special episode for you dedicated to Donald Trump's victory in the U.S. presidential election. We asked our expert, historian, scholar, and political scientist, Yevgeny Ponasенkov, to help us. Good day, Yevgeny. Good day, my dear Yuri. Good day, my friends and foes. You sound a bit too joyful today. Why shouldn't I be? It's no secret. I've been waiting for this victory for more than a year. There was very little hope, but I always, till the last moment, supported him in all of my broadcasts, both here and abroad. You can find them on YouTube. In each episode, I would explain to the American people in both Russian and English that they need to vote only for Trump. There was practically no chance of that happening because leftist propaganda has been going on for the past 70 years. But on the last breath, this accident happened. Because as we know now, several million more people voted for Clinton than for Trump. And it was a unique strike of fortune because if there were 4 more years of leftist policies, had it been like Obama wanted, where illegal immigrants and drug addicts would have been given voting rights, we could have forgotten about America as a great nation. And Putin would have been left to himself, free to build his soulless future for another 1,000 years or so. And now it will all end very quickly, I assure you. I'm ecstatic because, let me first explain what happened. The remaining working, living Americans that are real Americans, unlike those who we can't mention, they were fed up with Islamic terrorism. They were fed up with entire cities on welfare, where whole generations of African Americans were living on the dole and not working, where there was nothing but the murder of police and drug addiction. They were fed up with American foreign policy being so helpless, not reflecting America's true possibilities. How many times my friends have written me in Facebook that they were fed up with repairing the shattered windows of their cars, cleaning trash outside their houses, because these imbeciles have been let loose. If you give imbeciles all possible rights and grovel at their feet for 50 or 60 years, they will sooner or later become unbridled. And people are fed up with this. The other matter is that these imbeciles have reproduced, not to mention the illegal immigrants. And if today this lucky coincidence had not happened, because I repeat, Hillary Clinton had the majority of the popular vote, we would have witnessed a true catastrophe. If these numerous people on welfare would not have been so hammered and just simply woken up and shown up at the polling stations, then Clinton would have won absolutely. Luckily, they were so hammered and stoned that not all of them did show up on election day. Now they're out there protesting, burning tires, smashing windows, because as you know, in the last 3 days, in certain neighborhoods of America, in certain cities, terrible things are happening. This will only continue. They will try to sabotage and interrupt Trump in any way they can. It will be a kind of smoldering civil war that has been brewing for the past 100 years, or 70 years or so. It's inevitable. So Trump needs to think, first of all, of his personal security, because there are plenty of Islamists that have been let inside the country. He should surround himself with an army of bodyguards, appear less in public, and fight those who try to sabotage his presidency. And there will be a lot of those crazy leftists and savages. By the way, here's some food for thought. Some information on race and gender and how they influence the distribution of votes. Who votes for Clinton? Black men, 80%. Black women, 94%. Is that even normal when 94% of black women vote for one particular candidate? That's what I call racism. Because these 94%, they pronounce, we don't support the ideas of Anglo-Saxons. That's what true racism looks like. It's not normal. Do you get it? And if several more years had gone by, they would have won. They always say, immigrants were the ones who built America. Absolutely right. There were no other immigrants except Europeans. These people immigrated from Europe and founded a new Europe, America. But excuse me, America was founded by European immigrants. The Constitution was written by the Founding Fathers. Principles of government, democracy, aesthetics, the facades of the White House and the Founding Fathers' houses built in a classical style. All this was made by Europeans. Yes, others did arrive later. Good for them. But if they had created their own government based on their own traditions, what would America look like? It would look like Liberia. Look it up on the internet. Liberia is the place where former African-American slaves settled down in Africa. Look what they created and how they live today. It's a living hell. Hell. Or, let's look at Trump's election campaign. Remember when everyone was discussing how a Muslim family had lost their son in, I don't remember, Iraq or Iran? And everyone was screaming that he had died for America. What kind of racism was that? People of all confessions die for America. Christians, Buddhists, atheists. So wait a minute. If he died, was that some sort of incredible talent? Had he won the Nobel Prize in physics, biology, or literature? His family simply moved to America. Had they moved to a different country, he would have died with equal success for Bangladesh, Uganda, or Rwanda. Who can guarantee that he wouldn't have died for the Islamic State had he been there? Why promote him so? He died for America and what? Many die. It's not a talent and not his choice. He applied for a job. That's it. When we speak of racism, we've gone so crazy that we can't see that the racism has been reversed. I repeat, if 94% of a black population goes on strike against a candidate that stands for Anglo-Saxon values and associates himself with the world of Anglo-Saxons, that's not normal. This, from my point of view, is a form of racism. I'll remind you that today, legally, only black racism exists. Because only in Africa today can we see the legal discrimination of whites. You can check the internet for signs of white people being discriminated against in Africa. That's not possible anywhere else. If in America, with Trump, Pence, or Giuliani, if so much as a word was said about preventing someone from going somewhere, that's it. There's no tomorrow for them. They'd be jailed in 2 seconds. Look at what's going on in Africa. So don't tell me those fairy tales. When I rejoice at the sight of Trump's victory, apart from everything that I've said and written, I'm rejoicing artistically, as an artist, as an individual, as a theater director. I relish in the fact that, just imagine this scene. They announced Trump's victory, and there they are, sitting on their sofas, just as our compatriots sat around in Soviet times. By the way, those listening in Russia might not have a full understanding of what I'm talking about, so open the internet and look up what an African-American quarter in some African-American city looks like. Look at it from an aesthetic point of view. Look at the size of those bodies. And there they are, sitting around. He occupies about half the couch and she takes the other. Around them are about 15, 18, 47, 2049 children. And so they're watching as Trump's victory is announced. I would give a lot to see this sight, even if Trump had lost. I'm ecstatic. Just a minute, I want to say. I'm ecstatic that criminals and illegal immigrants that sell drugs from Mexico right now are furious. I'm enthralled that those underfucked feminists are hysterically crawling out of their boobless bras. Enthralled. Take a look. Why do I support Trump, even though I support the LGBT community? Though I remind you that Trump attended a gay marriage a few years ago, and said that it was wonderful. And in the last couple of days, he unraveled the LGBT flag. I understand that that's appealing to his voters, but nonetheless. So first of all, if you are part of the LGBT community and you are for the love of men, why don't you vote for a cool, good-looking man like Trump, but for some kind of grandma? Either I don't understand something in homosexuality, or if you like grandmas, that's a different orientation and scientific term altogether. Yeah, gerontophilia, yeah. But Clinton is crazy about her career, so she can't go on long without a raise. So she'll either drink or have some sort of nervous breakdown or paralysis. So we'll see. For starters, I'm sure that she's going to criticize him every day. Anything he does wrong, any fault of Obama's is going to become his. That's first. Second, the only people that vote for grandmas are little girls with bags and fancy hairstyles. Real gays, and I'll remind you that gay means happy, vote for cool guys. So, twinks and daddy chasers for grandmas, and real gays for Trump. I understand that in some sense, Trump can be viewed as an opponent. But the enemy, the opponent, must be strong. It turns you on when an opponent is strong. But back to my point. So the father of the bastard responsible for the Orlando nightclub shooting, he shamelessly came to support Clinton. The nerve! If he unfortunately wasn't killed by anyone, he should be sitting at home. But this guy went out and supported Clinton. How can you vote for a candidate whose father supports this maniac killer? It's unheard of. And I remind you that politics... Here, listen carefully, my children. Listen carefully. Politics is a very uncomfortable and cruel thing. You're not choosing a husband, a father, or a son, not even a parakeet in a cage. You're choosing between two evils. You don't count the amount of advantages, you're counting the disadvantages. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's disgusting. But you're counting the flaws. You will never find a person who is both against Islamic terrorism and at the same time understands Darwinism and the causes of the LGBT community. There's only one such person, and he can't legally be the President of the United States because he wasn't born there. I won't mention his name. I'm not done yet. Trump will trump your Putin regime. You need to calm down, stock up on canned goods and peanut butter, and understand that it'll all soon be very bad. Returning to what I was saying, they say, but you support the LGBT community and Trump. Let's count the disadvantages. Better that we have a hysteria around, do we need same-sex marriage or don't we need same-sex marriage? These are small things. You lived without marriage for so long, you can live another year and a half in some states. What's better, though, is that you'll stay alive, because it's better to stay alive than be killed by an Islamist or be harassed by locals or gopniks from certain neighborhoods. And it's better to have money. Because where there's money, and in order to get money you need to lower taxes, which Trump will do, where there's money, everything is good. Society develops, democracy and liberalism expands. Trump is a liberal in the true sense of the word. Now he's a conservative, but there were times when he was considered a liberal. Also, I'll remind you that in the toughest times for the LGBT community in the US, there were always people who felt comfortable and even gained international fame. I'm talking about gays of an exceptional talent. These were American sex symbols like James Dean, a gay man, the greatest dramaturg of all time, Tennessee Williams, Liberace, George Cukor, the film director, Montgomery Clift, Rock Hudson. Just look, they were all gays, and they flourished in the years when America was considered very conservative. I mean, the 40s, 50s, 60s, and beginning of the 70s. What do I also want to say, my dear tovaryshi, or comrades? What happened today is a true historic event, because we are now at a turning point of the tectonic plates of history. Next comes the collapse and utter end of Western civilization. Europe is becoming scarier with every day, and it's lucky that America has a small chance to once again begin to save Europe as it once did. For me, America is Europe's winch. Every time she pulls her out of the swamp. She did it one time in the 40s and 50s. Now she needs to do it once again, but on a different scale. Let me start with one phrase. Let everyone sit in their doghouses and despise Trump. Think he is on the hook of the Russians. Let them despise his hair, his tie, his behavior and manners. You mongrels are sitting in your panel houses like beggars. You can't even sign a single paper under which he makes hundreds of signatures daily. Cowards! You try facing a crowd that's screaming for and against you. No one could do it. You'll never create such a business, not to mention such a career. You can criticize and belittle a person only when you reach a level that remotely comes close to his. What did you want to ask? I was just about to ask you a question about Donald Trump. It will be actually two questions in one. First, what do you think of Trump's latest speech and the CIA investigation on the cyber attacks which are blamed on Russia? Well, if these morons work in intelligence services, it's their profession to prevent and, on the contrary, conduct such attacks against their enemies. It's a shame that the greatest country on earth, a country that has enough resources to squash any dictator in any part of the world, it's a shame that this blockhead was at the head of our country. This I won't say what, Obama, his 8-year rule is a tragedy for the whole country and the world as a whole. As a result, we see a press conference where these burly men are mumbling, and this is the intelligence service of the most powerful country on the planet, mumbling about being hacked by someone, blaming it on old Mother Russia. If it's so, and it most likely is, then sorry, it's an absolute disgrace. They should all be thrown out, and I hope that Trump does just that. Speaking of Trump's speech, it was a brilliant speech. A speech of a true president, a man who had made himself a businessman. That's who should be in charge of a country, not some official who can only distribute and steal other people's money. People work, and this official distributes them to loafers and their welfare. That includes money for terrorists. He doesn't earn any money. He has no idea how to do that. In his speech, Trump repeated the main ideas of his campaign, and I hope they will be implemented. He stated some obvious things. Everything he says is obvious. Yes, it's necessary to repeal the numerous trade agreements that they have with Japan and China. They all harm the U.S. And anything that harms the U.S. harms our civilization, because if you take U.S. out of the world card game, the whole house will come down. Dictators and savages will run loose. That's why the U.S. must be economically superior. Otherwise, you won't have an army or culture. Because if things get tough in Russia, where will everybody run? To the U.S. And if Comrade Obama remains in the U.S., there will be room left only for Islamic terrorists and loafers who are hammered and stoned, and will get you faster than in Russia. So one country must be healthy, and Trump will make it healthy, without Obamacare. And Trump looks what an American president should look like, and the other way around. An American president must look like Trump, and no other way, because it was these kind of people who created the nation which everyone admires today. Yes, you admire it. You watch their movies, you want their lifestyle, you want to be that rich, that organized. That's why you should deal with the likes of Trump. About those cyber attacks, I have no doubt the Russians tried to do something. They obviously had compromising material for both parties. What's amazing, though, is all they managed to find on Trump was the whole woman pussy grabber thing. Big deal. He wanted to fuck a woman. It only says what a boring life such a rich man can have. So, what did the cyber attacks show? The shadiness of Hillary's campaign. Their headquarters accepted money from the Saudis. The Saudis took part in the attacks on September 11th. American citizens are obliged to know this. And it's very good that they found out, not after, but before the election. So information is the most important, most sacred thing. I say that as an atheist. And Trump brilliantly used our ex-KGB agents, who obviously had the necessary help. I believe he's going to be more firm than Reagan. I adore Reagan, but Trump seems more conceptual. Though I repeat that Obama is leaving Trump with a country in terrible condition. I remind you that everything that the so-called Putin regime has done over the past years happened under the administrations of Obama, Merkel, Hollande, and other leftists. It all happened under Clinton, Kerry. Do you think the crisis in Crimea happened in 1 second? No, it was being planned when Clinton was still Secretary of State. Then there was Kerry. But what could Kerry do if he was under Obama? And you say, oh, Trump, he's the one who has to deal with all this now that it's all happened. When the troops of one country are located in another, try and help him in this situation. Do you want a big conflict? You've got to understand that this leftist moron Obama has brought the situation into a dead end. And Trump has to think first of all of his own security, because there are large amounts of hysterical leftists from all races and nationalities. He should surround himself with no less than 1 million bodyguards, near and far, and especially not talk to crowds. Because crowds are full of crazies who don't work for years, but then can buy a gun and murder a great person. I wanted to confirm your words and mention something related to the cyber attacks. It's a fact that the U.S. does have the world's largest cyber army, with a $7 billion annual budget that employs 9,000 government hackers. In second place is China. They should all be fired for their ineffectiveness. Yeah, and Russia, I'll remind you, is in fifth place, where only $300 million is spent on 1,000 hackers. But at least these guys are working in the right direction. Meaning in the wrong direction, but you understand what I mean. I've said this before. International politics is a fight. This isn't teddy bears. It's very serious. Especially if you sit down to play with a formal KGB agent. Either you're an idiot and you lose, or you do what's right. Obama lost. But as we know, Trump's inauguration is on January 20th. But even before the inauguration, there were a few rants of actress Meryl Streep towards Donald Trump. Her rants are as big as her nose. I have a question to you as an expert and political scientist and as a theater director. What do you think? Look, Streep is not a great dramatic actress. She simply plays one. She plays the role of a great dramatic actress. In a way, she was designated, and people who know nothing about acting, aesthetics, and art readily agree because they know nothing about life. She has a few cliches and a large nose. And recently she absolutely wrecked Thatcher, something I'll never forgive her. And she's a leftist and uses her leftism, showing how nice she is, that she's together with everyone. She doesn't have that many acting cliches, by the way. Any Azerbaijani market trader is more artistic. Yeah, because people don't know what exists around the world. Before they knew about my studies on the Patriotic War of 1812, they believed in a nonsense like that we won the Battle of Borodino and then retreated to Moscow and that this was normal. My fellow human beings, young and old, some of you may remember and some need to find out. There was an actress named Anna Magnani. Now that was a great dramatic actress. There was Simona Signoret. There was Vivian Leigh. Can you imagine if in Tennessee Williams' Streetcar Named Desire, instead of Vivian Leigh, there'd be Meryl Streep? Why, you'd throw up. It wouldn't be the world's greatest tragedy, but a comedy. Remember Joan Crawford? Look at her face and hands. There was and still is Jeanne Moreau, the greatest French dramatic actress. Look at Jeanne Moreau in the films of Louis Malle. You'll choke on Streep after watching that. She is talented, your Streep, and I readily accept her talent where she played, for example, a woman who was rejected by society after conversing with a French lieutenant with whom she had an affair. This was all in the countryside where no one accepted her. Of course, a perfect role for her. I even buy this on DVD and I have it at home, but nothing more. That's concerning her profession. Second of all, don't. Why do all these actors over the course of the whole plebeian 20th century go into politics? I mean, the whole 20th century is a result of the fact that not scientists or intellectuals, but actors gave all the interviews. Look at all those glamour magazines sold to you in the kiosks. Not one intellectual interview. Just TV show stars. Dog shit, if you ask me. And you eat it. And you repost it. All of Facebook is reposting this idiot. She hasn't figured anything out and is already being rude. Who does she think she is? What has she done? What exactly has she done in Trump's sphere? Which includes business, economics, politics, and his idea of saving the world from savages. What has she done? Nothing. Let her come to power and tomorrow there'll be terrorists running all over the place. Here's a good experiment, by the way. Give her power of the president for 1 day. She'll sign decrees that will allow savages to come in, and in about 10 days, acts of terror will happen every day. That's what your Meryl Streep is. But no one thinks about that and only reposts her delirious thoughts. I want to say one more thing. For me, intellect, I have a kind of gradation of people when it comes to intellect. The lowest level is when they understand that Putin is not a great president and that he's not very good for Russia. This is the first level, already better than nothing. The next level is when you understand that Crimea is not a great joy and you cannot get enough of it, let alone spread it on anything. That's the next level. Then there's a big gap that leads to the next one. If you understand that it's bad to accept savage terrorists into Europe, and you understand that because they had no work and despised everyone around for centuries, they can't behave otherwise, you're another step up. But most can't get beyond this step. Only one person on Echo Moskva radio. And then, many steps ahead, comes the next level. Those who understand that Streep is not a great dramatic actress, and those who don't. This, I promise you, is harder than quantum physics sometimes. It's harder than understanding why Schrödinger's cat is here and there, together and not. Because here, you have to know literally a whole lot. You must have taste. And taste is a rarer thing than technical knowledge. Because it is a large amount of combinations, unfathomable qualities of specific connections, and morphological structures of the brain, together with years and years of absorbing the right information. For many years, by the way, look at my publications on theater and film back in 2005 or 2007, when she was not yet considered the greatest living actress. I always said, guys, don't advertise her. She's merely talented. She can't have a finger in every pie. And she'll wreck many more Thatchers. You know what? It's actually very dangerous to be great. Because some Streep will come along and wreck your legacy. You know, when I wake up in the mornings, people tell me, do more, go to the barricades, become great. So I'll become great, and then what? I'll take the risk, and then some mediocre actor will play me. Why bother? I'd rather rest, listen to some music. Less to be ashamed of. I have a question. Yes? Did you watch Trump's election? I knew that you had a question for me and you didn't simply call. You're a visionary, a genuine visionary. It's my profession. So did you watch Trump's inauguration? Can't you hear? Did Trump sing? What a wonderful melody. We finally have marches, beautiful scenes, great, beautiful people, wonderful coats, blonde women at the head of it all, a blonde man, marvelous officers, tall with a good profile, very thin facial traits. They escorted the guests. Melania Trump, who was in a beautiful dress of sky blue. Their wonderful boy, their wonderful son-in-law. Everything was great. Not to mention Obama, who tried his ultimate best to put on a smile. He should get a star in Hollywood for such a smile. We'll return to Obama a bit later. Now let's speak about Trump. Yevgeny, I know how you sometimes react to some topics, but please understand. All of my reactions are appropriate. I'm a journalist and I can't not ask the following question. There's one listener who has asked the same questions 3 times already. Can I finally ask it? She sounds concerned. Yeah, she writes, the U.S. is a country of immigrants. They created the country, but your Trump isn't a big fan of them. In this sense, what do you think of multiculturalism? Maybe all our problems are because it's not being consistently implemented on a legal scale? End quote. So, Yevgeny, what do you think of the problem of multiculturalism in the U.S.? I'm sorry. She's writing it for the 3rd time? No sex. That's the main problem of those who consistently implement multiculturalism and the protection of it. Listen, Trump cannot be against immigrants because he is a German. His family has Irish and German roots, and that's great. Listen, here's what I want to say. My profession, apart from being a visionary, is to talk about that which no one talks about, much less thinks about. So tell me, my tovarish Yura, comrade Yuri, where did Trump's inauguration take place? In Washington, D.C.? No, be more concrete. That's what I mean. Where exactly? In Washington? And that's where your knowledge of this world ends. That's taking into account that you're an educated man from Saratov. Imagine what the majority of our listeners would say. They would say, in America, some would say, in New York or somewhere else. It actually happened on Capitol Hill. And what is a capital? A capital is a concrete name of a hill where there were the sessions of the Roman, I repeat, the Roman Senate. The Capitol was built by the Founding Fathers in what style? Neoclassicism. More exactly, in the Empire style, from the French word empire. That means a direct connection to Roman and European history. The U.S. created a civilization, its constitution, which we so admire, a marvelous economy, industry, IT, which was all created by European immigrants. The contribution of others is intellectually, factually, and creatively less. This doesn't mean that they're bad. They are great, amazing. They have all the rights. They have more rights than we have. And no one deprives them of their rights. We help them as much as we can. Give them what they want. Whole cities live on welfare and don't do anything. But still Look, just today, a senior white male was beaten up for voting for Trump. And before that, the video got millions of views on YouTube. 3 African Americans beat up a white man, forcing him to shout how bad Trump is. This is in America. What do you call this? It's called black racism. It's called disorderly conduct. No, Yuri, disorderly conduct is when some idiot slashes your tires. In this case, it's black racism. And today, Trump pronounced an exceptional speech. I know that among my subscribers, even among my fans, there are those who are against Trump. But wait a minute, who of those that are against Trump can read a speech on Capitol Hill, off paper, in front of a humongous crowd? This means to come out without losing consciousness or shitting yourself, without forgetting the main ideas. Who is up for it? The answer is almost no one. Absolutely no one. What's more, I don't give a rat's ass, and I understand that this is true, about the fact that our boys who were let loose by Obama, yes, Obama untied the Russians' hands, that they carried out some cyber attacks. They did the right thing. They are obliged to protect their interests. They're protecting themselves, after all. They did, however, bet on the wrong person. But that's a problem with their intelligence and analysts. They should be fired. If they thought that in Odessa and Mariupol such a scenario would work as we all know where, it didn't. Yesterday they told me, oh, there's some sort of investigations against some of Trump's advisors. We should be careful. I'm sure that there were contacts, but I could care less for 2 reasons. First, if you use your adversary's power in your fight against him, you turn out the victor. Second, you all, and I really do mean the vast majority of you, look at history from the basement. Trump's victory is a stage of development in history, in an anthropological sense. I look at history on a large scale, anthropologically. Dozens and dozens of years ago, when there was no Trump, no Putin or KGB, me or you, a leftist process was started. It then continued. It was a yearly, weekly humiliation of working, creative people. Humiliation and more humiliation. Daily shattered shop windows, daily extortions, levies, and rudeness, where you look the other way and you're ratted on instantly. As a result, the people with the last 0.5% of their possibilities, because those who loot and break shop windows had already been given everything, this last 0.5% elected the Donald. And simply by winning, Donald presented me personally, from a great man to a great man, with a present. I could care less about all these. You know what? Society is an invented category. Where's this so-called society in Russia? We don't have one society, just as there's no society in Ukraine or the US. There's a civil war going on everywhere, active or passive, hybrid or non. There was never any society anywhere, only temporarily in elite nations that existed long ago. So Trump gave me a present because I witnessed the rage of the leftists and savages, and I treat this as a personal present. I don't need anything else. What will follow? Will there be a showdown or an impeachment? There's no significance. It doesn't mean a thing. But to understand that, one must be an individual that looks at history on a larger scale. One must mean something and do something. Fight the majority. He who does not fight the majority is worthless and will never rise to such a level of understanding. Wait a minute, I'm not done. So, returning to the inauguration. Pay attention to the wonderful, beautiful faces at the event and in the office where the signing of the documents took place. There were children present, the cult of family was there, and all the children were smiling. And at the same time, on the online translation where you can see the likes and dislikes and sad emoticons, just look at the amount of sad emoticons. They are physiologically against such a scene and him personally, even when he is for universal human values, which Obama was for. Just look at this concrete evil and hatred. I emphasize, that which has happened in the last couple of decades has turned into a system called leftist fascism. And fascism is an ideology that does not allow anything except its own ideas and theses. And today, in Europe and the USA, this fascistic ideology is becoming more and more commonplace, where you cannot say what you think. If you cannot say what you think, it's not freedom. It's not even Radio Liberty or the Voice of Liberty. Nothing of the sort. Only the names remain. Stalin also talked of freedom, but he had an ideology, and the USSR had a hideous ideology where you could not criticize certain things in social classes. The same thing is happening in Europe and the US. If here, in Russia, the ex-KGB is still thinking of jailing me or not, because there might be some repercussions, my friend Placido Domingo will exhaust Putin with questions of where is Ponasenkov and so on. If I say what I think about savages and terrorists in Europe or the US, I'm more likely to be jailed. That's answering the questions of those idiots who ask, why don't I immigrate? Because now are not the 60s or 70s when Rudolf Nureyev made his famous leap to freedom. Not to mention Baryshnikov or Makarova, the famous ballerina. Today, we live in a different age. There is no dichotomy where one is good and the other is bad, and the other way around. Everything is mixed, and today all of Trump's theses are beautiful because he wants to return to these fundamental things. I repeat, in that age there were plenty of bad things. The problem today is that I'm forced to support a person who does not have the best ideas in terms of religion and so on. But we must remember, in politics, we always choose between two evils, and you will never find the ideal. Don't look for a husband. It's like our opposition member Navalny. 2-3 years ago, some thought he had a chance and presented him as a knight in shining armor. Well, you will never get a knight, because I don't want to participate in all this political riffraff. And if I ever do, all the savages of Europe and the US will be licking Trump's shoes, asking him to come back. You mentioned Barack Obama. Speaking of Barack, there are barracks and there are palazzos or palaces. Anyhow, many were impressed by his last speech. He was very emotional, even shed a tear. What do you think of his final speech? I managed to hold back my tears. I saw the first couple of seconds and several reposts on Facebook. What can I say? An elderly African American with a large sense of pathos. Though, as we know, pathos is not an African word. Unlike democracy, capital, Senate, president, emperor, tsar, liberalism, democracy, capitalism, monetization, human rights, how many words from other civilizations came to us? I have no idea. I think not a single one. So, speaking of this elderly man, my likes and dislikes are more important or precious than those of the vast majority. For them, it's enough that an African American sheds some tears. For me, it's not. Because those idiots don't understand that a person who was the President of the United States must not only cry, but also act. And the tears that were shed in the Near East, The Middle East and the Ukraine in recent years were shed because the President of the United States was a feeble blockhead, which allowed dictatorial regimes to reign free. They say, oh, he said so many great things about the protection of gays and lesbians. Guys, in Russia, there's not a single person whom, from a scientific point of view, protected gays more, even though I believe that the term is silly and unscientific. I explained it all in previous interviews, but it went unnoticed because people are idiots. How did Obama protect them in Russia? He didn't. With every year, it's worse and worse, just as it is in the Middle East and in Ukraine. How did he protect them? He didn't. He's a chatterbox. All leftists are chatterboxes. They're all talk. How many times can you send... Remember those two hicks? The penguin from France and the jacket from Germany went to bow down and convince Putin. Don't be so aggressive. He could care less, and very well so, because if countries who can solve it all in a mere second start to bow before you, you should use it. And it's right to use their idiocy. And so on and so forth. Now, when the situation's been led absolutely out of control, with dictators and terrorists roaming free, being given passports and citizenship, with people apologizing to them because apparently they blew up too few buildings, now it's going to be very, very hard. Especially considering the fact that in the US there's a smoldering civil war going on that is about to take on a new and active form, which is very unfortunate because this will both provoke and hold back Trump and his economic reforms, and as we all know, the economy is the foundation of a nation. This is all very sad.